Give me a good table from the late 1990s. An ebullient stained glass diorama, the box a window that contains its cathedral. With tight, strong flippers that don't stick or drag, and caged catwalk rails running over the fray and down the sides in order to drop the ball at my fingertips. With its noises blaring indistinguishable in the din, and especially beneath the music of this place, the arcade, it doesn't matter. I only care to hear your mechanical sounds. Springs snapping, bumpers chunking, the thud and ringing hum of the orb against the wood. I like a busy table, with loads of action and garish-colored flashes at every impact, replete with ramps and perhaps an upper deck. An extra flipper. Oh, give me an extra flipper. Smaller, slave to one of the mains. Give me set pieces and numbers I can't not hit some switch to activate a table event if I tried. I want this thing under my hands to be hectic, so I can become above it. Even when the ball drops dead between the flippers. I played a lot cooler than when I was young. I don't care if I know the name on the table, so long as it's fast and got good rhythm. The older tables are too heavy and loose for me. The response is slow, leaden, but weightless. Like the powerless punches of a dream I can't fight my way out of. None of this is a nostalgic thing for me. I played a lot of driving and light gun games when arcades proper still existed. I still like the driving and shooting games now. I'm good at them. Especially the shooting ones, because I play cooler than when I was younger. There are very few of these in the new arcade bars, and not the best of them. Pinball was always fun, but it felt anachronistic. Clunking machines belonged to my parents' adolescence, not my microprocessed childhood. And never mind the art on the tables that belied how perfectly contemporary those machines remained. This bar does not feel like a piece of childhood rekindled. The magic of arcades by the beach with my father is faded and overgrown as the haunted amusement park, with its punched-up sky slide, its plastic topside more bleached out than the up-gelled bangs of every kid in my class wishing to be Tony Hawk, and its quarter-mile Ouroboros of broken asphalt that no longer smells of anything but the trees of the perimeter and breeze. Never more the mixture of unfiltered gasoline fumes and concession fryers. Though the memory of certain hotel basements ringing with prizes inside my head, a headlight with the peculiar scent of carpets in hotels with pools, does bring me warmth when I recall them, and remember them impossibly entertaining. Then there was the odd movie theater with a small arcade, when someone's parents treated us a rare extra few dollars for tokens before or after the feature. The water park one summer. These latter arcade types rarely had more than one pinball machine, putatively functional. I do remember my favorite pinball experience. I was on a hockey tournament, and the hotel we stayed at had a small arcade inside, on one of the upper floors. It was not far down the hall from the ice machine. It had no door, just an alcove with a few cabinets. Someone on the team put what seemed at the time a small fortune into the Starship Troopers pinball machine, and couldn't possibly play all the games. I had unlimited pinball that day. There were credits on the machine when I left, but I played what seemed like all afternoon. It was probably game time when I had to go. That was the first time I'd ever had or seen a third flipper. Small, upper right third of the table, a little inside where the playfield narrowed. It had perfect line of sight of an easy money ramp. I got pretty good at that table. I must have put up at least a high score in the day. On that trip, I don't remember the late-night hotel room hijinks we attempted. Something about dashing between team rooms without tipping off the coaches and chaperones. I don't think I dashed. We all converged in the team captain's room, the son of the head coach, and that might have been the room I was in as well. But we were generally invoking ire, and perhaps one of the kids with elder influences in his home life was trying to teach the rest of us what I'm sure was only some version of poker, or some kind of nonsense. In contrast, my sponsored afternoon of Starship Trooper pinball stands out still. The kid whose parents' money he'd put into the machine for a reckless amount of games even stood and watched me play after he'd had his fill, vicariously lashing the top 10 vis-a-vis my indefatigable gluttony to continue play. But the new arcade bars and their regiments of pinball machines, more than the real arcades could afford housing at any one time in my kid days, do not sweep me in the halcyon days of my misremembered youth. Turns out I merely still enjoy pinball. Perhaps even more now, especially as my favorite light guns and driving numbers are hard to find. At the table, I could be thinking about anything I want, mulling problems or letting solutions and inspirations and questions drift to me out of the score multipliers like free plays. This could be my meditation. I could calculate tactical strategy to yoke the apparently irregular physics of the table to my vanity, though here it is usually only my reaction time that becomes irregular, though it is never perceived that way by the me playing, and desire to break into the top scores with a prodigy-like lack of dedication to practice. I could scheme and deduce and experiment with how much tilt I can exploit before the table calls my gambit. I could make this a very zen thing. But no, I'm simply here, playing pinball. There's a drink holder on the side of the machine, too tall for my short cocktail glass, and the DJ here tonight does incredible things. His shtick is a lot of old-school hip-hop and funk with soul laced into all sorts of songs appropriate to the arcade bar atmosphere. Most evoke the memorized imaginary of an era 40 years ago if they are not from then. Most of us here are under 30. It all means nothing to me, to who I am. I just still like pinball. Maybe because after the cover charge, $5 seems to be the universal standard, and the bar, the games are free. And they are free. They don't have to mean anything. They don't have stakes or investments riding on them, but for those intrinsic to the game itself. I like that. I can care about the motions of play and not about how many tokens I've got, or about potential returns and prize tickets. In these arcade bars that have become popular, I have no limit of chances. There's nothing to lose and nothing to gain, but all is to be held. I don't enjoy gambling, and I admit to a streak of miserly nature. But what I do love is the game, and the fantastic anomic suspension of exterior consequence when one gives over to the stakes of the game itself, the pure play of it. Every inch and measure of win and loss, success and failure, finesse and bugling within the game. The game, the game, the game. The game, a disinterested realm, dispassionate to the constructs of the so-called real reality's meager concern with it, concerns which as the player I've been given a window to stand without. A rare view to see the light does not shine from inside the cathedral glass. The only mediation of substance involved in the game now that money and prestige has been removed becomes the form of the game, the condition of its embodiment in a cabinet. The glass is a pellucid forgery of the veil of Maya. The only obscurities for me to lose the nature of the terrain and eventually my ball in are the reflections of the background cabinet art, and my score displayed above. And even yet, when I enter there, banging around the metal of my sphere, the light shooting up and out with punches through the mirage obliterated by the action below the surface, even as the racket racks up more orange points on the board's antique screen. A free game of pinball, distinct from a free play or a free or extra ball, delineates and inhabits its own set of definitions. The first principle of the game is that the game is worth playing, a prima facie demonstrated ipso facto. It is the playing of the game itself that is desirable because, while you may do extraordinarily well at it, the end of play always comes at the end of your own resources. You always lose. You make a mistake, you get served a dead ball. In the old days, you ran out of money. Eventually, even if you have the credits, like the boy who abdicated his day's worth of Starship Troopers pinball to me, you run out of time, or otherwise capacity for the game, and return to the mortal concerns of reality. It always ends for you with game over. There's no justification of the game from without, nor are there stakes or prizes extrinsic to the playing of the game. Pinball never rewards with prize tickets, only an LED legacy of your prowess and grace on the table, on display to those who care to read, who value the same game as you. Nor does the playing justify, redeem, or condemn anything external to it. There is no exigent relationship between reality and the game and the playing as far as any of the concerns of either are considered. It is a milieu, a lacuna between. The threshold property lies in A, their sine qua non, and B, the encounter. What encounter? The encountering of the senseless chasm between things beyond your control and the things you are not able to. Between the two exists a great disparity, and yet often confronts us as a single immense and helpless gulch. My cabinet is a little older than the late 90s models my eyes listen for along the walls. It was made when the decade was nascent, with all the brassy warmth of a fin de siècle and the cutting enthusiasm of a turn of the century. Find another empty cabinet. Well, an unoccupied cabinet, inside a lot, hands hovering over the buttons. This one's a novelty bowling apparatus, but that doesn't matter. It's only surface. This is a pinball machine and all laws apply. But it has the same problem as one or two other cabinets of classic pinball in this den. Only the game within a game makes it worse, like when nudity becomes nakedness. It has lost its sense of the game, and while mechanically just as entertaining, without a game end, without a beginning to set out a match of my own, the playing quickly feels like nothing, becomes senseless and numb repetition, an endless succession of undifferentiated cards, infinite and dumb. I can't tell when I've reached 10 or the counters reset, there's no results scored. This machine and those like it have not preserved the meaningful structure of the game. And so the playing has become to me unintelligible, like interpreting line without direction, or listening to music without the apperception of sonority. These cabinets play free through the delineations that describe the game, that give the playing its consequence and possession of a quality. In programming these few games with unlimited tokens, the computers have mistaken unlimited plays of an infinite number of games for limitless play of the same one, a one that disintegrates into nothing. There can be no world of infinite tomorrows for us if the today cannot close, and so too there must be a game over. We cannot begin to play again, play with quality if we cannot finally lose, if there is no opportunity for us to first begin. There becomes no appreciable difference in skill or quality, or perhaps the word I'm looking for is nature, of play to the player whose infinite balls net equal points in 10 minutes and 2 balls, or 10 hours in a non-number of balls. When the individual game never ends, no appreciable difference can define playing and walking away. In the universe of unlimited play free, the game cannot exist. It requires by its own law an opening and closing of play. That's what gives playing it a point. That is, its existence requires that the game be defined by the playing. And if the game cannot exist, then the playing of the game is impossible. As implied when I first introduced italics, the playing exists qua the game, and the playing is incompatible to the machines which play free, that don't recognize the difference between playing and walking away. The playing disintegrates, as so too does the game, meant to be played cum laude itself. I still want to play the game, so I wander from the free play machines to find a cabinet full of substance, full of play, full of lights and bells that prove to me the energy. And I hear that E equals MC squared, so the energy matters. The energy is all that matters. There's no sense of closure departing the gameless console, still playing the play. And I'm left with a disorientation in the pit of my stomach that hits my brain like too much of a drug. It doesn't matter a damn to the universe if I achieve my italics. Or even if tonight is the last night I am joined in game, and if from the doorway I walk away forever. I just still like to play.